Hello. Today we are going to spend another day multiplying common fractions using the standard algorithm. Let's do a quick review of what it looks like on an array. If we're taking 1/4 times 2/5, remember that actually means we are finding 1/4 of 2/5. So we're finding a part of a part. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw the 2/5 in the box first. So that means I need to draw vertical or horizontal lines breaking this square into 5 equal pieces. It looks like this is the closest I'm going to get to 5 equal pieces. Make sure you have yours drawn before we move on. Okay, so we're finding 1/4 of 2/5. So first we have to show what 2/5 is. There's 5 equal pieces here. I'm going to shade in 2 of them to represent 2/5. So that's 2/5 of the whole. Now I need to find 1/4 of that. So what I'm going to do is now instead of vertically, horizontally I'm going to draw my lines in and I'm going to separate it into fourths. Okay, so looks like that's the best I can do here as well. So we are going to now look at the fourths that I have drawn in. So you see this is 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, and 4/4 would make the whole. The problem I'm looking for is 1/4, so I only need one of the pieces. So I'm actually looking at this portion. That is 1/4. Now the answer is the part where they overlap. So these two squares have both of them. And if you look at that, then that is 1, 2. So it is 2 equal pieces out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So it is 2 pieces out of 20. I have just taken 2/5 of the whole and broken that 2/5 into fourths and found what one of those fourths would be. Now the answer is 2/20, but we always have to check if we can reduce. And we know that 2/20 can be reduced by 2/2. So then the answer actually turns into 1/10. If you think about how we've done this before, or how we learned how to do this last, we knew that you can try to simplify before so you get your smallest answer right away or your lowest terms right away. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at diagonals and verticals. So if I look at the problem I have written on the bottom and I start with 2 and 4, I ask myself, does anything go into both 2 and 4? I know that 2 goes into 2 one time, 2 goes into 4 2 times. So I can simplify that. Check again, 1 and 2, nothing goes into that. Check my second diagonal, 1 and 5, nothing goes into 1 and 5. Check my verticals, which would be 1 and 2, nothing goes into 1 and 2. And my other vertical, which is 1 and 5, nothing goes into 1 and 5. So I rewrite my problem as 1/2 times 1/5, and then I multiply across. 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 5 is 10, which matches the answer that we got when we drew our array. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go through 3 examples. But we're not going to use just common fractions. We're going to use mixed numbers so that we can expand what we've done already. Let's do a quick review of the steps that you need to follow. So remember, when you're multiplying common fractions, the first thing you need to do is make sure each factor is written in A over B form. So that would mean if you have a whole number, you should write it over 1. And if you have a mixed number, you should change it to an improper fraction. Once you have those things in A over B form, then you can start to look for simplifying. Remember, you can simplify vertically, diagonally, but never horizontally. Okay, so Vertically is when you're looking up and down, and diagonally is when you're looking at the diagonals of the fractions. Come up with a system of what you always check so that you consistently remember to check everything. Once you've simplified, then you multiply across, and then what you have left is something that you can reduce, simplify, or make a mixed number. Now remember, if you have reduced and simplified everything from step 2, the only thing you'll have to do in step 4 is change it to a mixed number. So let's try this out with example number 1. Please write this right below the array that you have on your paper. The first example is 2 2/5 times 6/8. Why don't you pause the video and try it out yourself, and then come back. Please make sure you're using pencil so that if you've made a mistake, you can correct it. Okay, so we know that the first step is to make sure your fractions are written in A over B form. Right away, you see you have 2 2/5, so that needs to be changed to an improper fraction. You take 5 times 2, which is 10, and then you add the 2, which is 12. So what I'm really multiplying is 12/5 times 6/8, which is already in A over B form. The second step was to check if there's anything you can simplify. I start with my diagonals, so I'm checking 5 and 6, and I see that nothing goes into both 5 and 6. 5 is prime, so the only thing you'd ever be able to simplify with 5 is if another number has 5 in it. And then the other diagonal is 12 and 8. So I think about 12 and 8, and I know that they're both even, so 2 goes into both of them. But I also notice that 4 goes into both of them. You want to try to find the greatest common factor that goes into both numbers. If you don't, you can still simplify. You can continue simplifying off what you have simplified, but it's best to try and start with the greatest common factor. So 4 goes into both 12 and 8. 4 goes into 12 3 times. 4 goes into 8 2 times. I recheck what I have there. I had 3 and 2, and nothing goes into 3 and 2. So now I'm going to look at my verticals. The vertical numbers are 3 and 5 on the left. Nothing goes into both 3 and 5. And the verticals are 6 and 2 on the right. So I do see that I can simplify 6 and 2. I know that 2 goes into both 6 and 2. 2 goes into 6 3 times. And 2 goes into 2 1 time. Recheck that vertical, 3 and 1. There's nothing that goes into both 3 and 1. So at this point, it really is a very good idea to rewrite your fractions so you know that you're looking at the correct numbers. So if I rewrite this fraction, I have 3/5 times 3 over 1. Now, a lot of people want to simplify this 3 and 3, and you cannot do that. We can never simplify horizontally, only vertically and diagonally. So now I'm going to multiply across. 3 times 3 is 9, and 5 times 1 is 5. I check to see if there's anything I can simplify. 9 and 5, I cannot simplify that, but I do notice it's a mixed number. So I'm sorry, an improper fraction, so I need to change it to a mixed number. This is one we can do in our heads. We say, how many times does 5 go into 9? It goes in one whole time. There are 4 left over out of 5. Now, if we're forgetting how to change improper fractions to mixed numbers, remember long division will always help. So we can take 9, because you do top in, bottom out, divided by 5. You see that 5 goes into 9 one time. That's 5. Subtract, you get 4. And your fraction comes from that. So it goes one whole time with 4 left over out of 5. So that, again, would also be 1 4/5. All right, let's try another one. Let's take a look. This time they're both going to be mixed numbers. Let's try 1 and 5/6 times 2 and 4/11. Follow the steps in the video and try it out. Come back when you're done. Okay, so you should have noticed that both of the problems are mixed numbers, so they both need to be changed to improper fractions. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 5 is 11. So my first fraction will be 11/6 times 11 times 2 is 22, plus 4 is 26. So 26/11. I know that I can simplify vertically and diagonally. I'm going to start with 6 and 26, and I see that both of those numbers are even, so I know that 2 is going to go into both of them. But I'm going to question if anything else goes into them. Does 4 go into 6? 4 doesn't go into 6. 6 goes into 6, but does 6 go into 26? The answer is no. So 2 is actually the biggest number we can simplify it by. 2 goes into 6 3 times. 2 goes into 26 13 times. I'm going to check the next diagonal, which is 11 and 11. I see that they're the same number, so I know 11 goes into 11 one time, and 11 goes into 11 one time. I'm going to check my vertical numbers. I have 1 and 3. Nothing goes into both 1 and 3. I have 13 and 1. Nothing goes into both 13 and 1. So I'm going to rewrite my problem as 1/3 times 13/1. When I multiply across, I get 1 times 13 is 13, and I get 3 times 1 is 3. So I have 13/3. So again, I have an improper fraction when I'm done that needs to be changed to a mixed number. One I think I can do in my head. I know that 3 goes into 13, 4 whole times, that is 12. So I have 1 left over out of 3. If I don't remember that, I can take my long division skills. I put 13 on the inside and 3 on the outside. 3 does not go into 1. 3 goes into 13 4 times, that's 12. When I subtract, I get 1. So again, that is 4 whole times with 1 left over out of 3. 4 and 1/3. Okay, we have one more example. When we look at the third example, it's 5 and 1/3 times 3 and 3/10. Try that out. See how you do. Come back when you're done. Okay, let's see how we did. We see that they're both mixed numbers, so we're going to change them to A over B form. 3 times 5 is 15, plus 1 is 16/3, times 10 times 3 is 30, plus 3 is 33/10. I'm going to start by looking at my diagonals. I have 3 and 33. Are there any numbers that go into both 3 and 33? And you should have found that 3 goes into both of them. 3 goes into 3 one time. 3 goes into 33 11 times. I have 1 and 11. Nothing goes into that. I check 16 and 10. I see that they're both even. So I know that 2 will go into both of them. Does 4? 4 goes into 16 but not 10. Does 6? Does 8? Nope, nothing else but 2 goes into both of them. So 2 goes into 16 8 times. And 2 goes into 10 5 times. 8 and 5 I see are completely simplified. I can't do any more. Check my vertical numbers. 8 and 1. Nothing goes into both 8 and 1. 11 and 5 are both prime, so I can't simplify 11 and 5. So the problem I'm left with is 8/1 times 11/5. I know that 8 times 11 is 88. And I know that 1 times 5 is 5. Now this isn't one that I'm going to know off the top of my head, so I am going to do the division right away to help me out. I'm going to put 88 on the inside. I'm going to put the 5 on the outside. 5 goes into 88 one time. Subtract, I get 3. Bring down the 8. 5 goes into 38 7 times. That's 35. Subtract, I get 3. No other numbers to bring down. So I see that my answer is it goes in 17 whole times with 3 left over, and we're dividing by 5. I should check my 3/5, make sure that there's nothing that goes into both 3 and 5, and there is not. So the final answer is 17 3/5. Now I know some of you are still fighting doing the simplifying on the diagonal and vertically and want to just multiply across. But remember, if you did that in this problem, and you don't need to write this down, but I want you to think about this. If you did that when you had (16/3) times 33/10, when you multiplied across, well, 3 times 10 is 30, but you would have had to multiply 16 times 33 using the standard algorithm. That would have given you 528 30ths. And then this becomes the problem that you would have to simplify and change to a mixed number. That's not an easy problem to divide. You can do it, but it's not as easy as if you simplify and can work with a problem like 88/5 instead. So that's why we really want you to try to make sure you're simplifying vertically and diagonally to make the problems easier. All right, so you're going to try this out on your own. Good luck. Make sure you ask questions if you have them.